if I hang on one arm, my arm would just dislocate.
What?
If I just keep going, they'll just go till they tear. There's no stopping
But you
point.
can't do like pull-ups and stuff?
So I used to not be able to just do, you couldn't do monkey bars. Like I couldn't do any of that stuff because my arms would literally just dislocate. I massaged my calves every single morning so I could walk on the ground. And it's like, because they would hurt, my feet would be so swollen.
And you think that ice baths have helped that?
That is actually, the crazy thing is I ran tests for 2.5 years on, because after I did the ice bath, all my pain was gone, right? So I kept doing it, and I was like, well, let's try a test here. Let's not do an ice bath for a while and see what happens. So that's exactly what I did. Day 14, everything came back like a whirlwind.
Welcome to Flying High with Cam.
Yayo!
A podcast where I combine two things I love.
This is insane!
Interviewing the most successful people I know
You're the baddest guy in town.
while flying helicopters.
Engine failure.
Fly with me. I want to hear your stories, learn from your experiences, and build a community. This is Flying High with Cam.
All right, welcome to Flying High with Cam. I have a special guest today, Jerame. This guy, because of what he started, like literally changed my life. I created a sacred rhythm in my life that I didn't know existed, and I want to start out by telling a story, and then I want to get into your story. And it was how I found Reconnect. I was training for my Ironman, and I was getting a massage like 2 miles down the road, and this lady was like, "Hey, like your body is a wreck. Have you ever done an ice bath before?" And at the time, I've never heard of an ice bath. This was probably 3 years ago, 2.5, 3 years ago. And she's like, well, what it is like, it's cold water therapy. You get in this tub that's like literally 32, 33 degrees, and you just stay there. And I thought, like, how miserable. Like, there's no way I want to do that. But she's like, it will heal your body. And at the time, like, I would have done anything because I was just so sore. So right after my massage, I go there and I walk in the door, and it was this most hippie, like calm, relaxing. I can say that because I got my beads on, man. Like I'm all about the hippiness. And I walk in, and the sweetest lady was there, Melissa, and I love it. Like no one was at the office or at your store at the time, right?
Yeah.
And I walk in, and she's like trying to explain the compression and trying to explain the red lights, and all I saw up to my left was like this tub, and there was ice in it, and I'm like, I want to do that. She's like, well, we have a process that we do. Like, let's do the compression, let's relax. I'm like, no, I just want to do this. Anyways, she gets me in this tub, dude, and I'm not like a very like sentimental person. Like I don't really, my wife's probably seen me cry like maybe 5 times in our 14 years of marriage. And I get in this ice bath, and everything about me just wants to jump out of this ice bath. And she's she's calming me down through breath. And like 3 minutes later, and I'm like, all right, I'm done. Cause the goal is 2 minutes. Right. And I get out, and I just want to like start crying. Wow. Because all these emotions just hit me. It was like the first time in my life where I had to like be within my thoughts and like accept who I was. And from that moment forward, like I was hooked. I never missed for like a 1.5 years straight until I got my own ice bath, and I moved out to Queen Creek, so I was a little bit further from you. But I went there religiously once a week, and it's literally changed my life. Now I try and do it every single day, and it's been absolutely phenomenal. But I want to start out with your story. And there's a quote that's on your shirts, that's on the wall. Like, you are the cause and you are the cure. Like, what is that from?
First off, thank you. Thank you for sharing that. I didn't know that whole story, and that's so great to hear, man. And I'm glad that you found us. The motto is actually something that I discovered within my second personal ice bath, and it was a moment where I realized all of my anxiety, all of my hidden pain, all the trauma that I decided to identify with and hold on to was all my fault. It wasn't my fault as to what happened to me as a child, but what I do next is all upon me. And so in my second ice bath, I went in there, and I have a condition called EDS, which leaves your body highly inflamed. And so I was just used to always being in pain constantly since I was about 16. And so I went in there with the belief that I was going to heal it. And so I went in there 7 minutes and 19 seconds later. The water was roughly 32 degrees, and I melted every single piece of ice.
Wait, you lasted 7 minutes your first time?
Yeah.
Which is unbelievable.
Right.
Wait, where did you go, like, to experience, like, where was your ice bath?
My backyard.
Okay, like in the pool, or like you just created one?
So my buddy and I, we talked about it, like going in and getting a horse trough so we could start doing ice baths, because for one, I've always hated the cold. If it's 75 out, I had sweatpants on. You know, I like that cozy comfort vibe. And so he went and got the horse troughs at Home Depot. We went to like every Home Depot he found, and he ended up getting lucky because he ended up getting 2 of them. And
like we're doing this together at the exact same time.
It worked out great. Yeah, so I was like, here you have the other one. And so so I got mine, went home and set the whole deal up, and it was back in December. So it's about 7, maybe just over 7 years ago, almost 8 years ago.
Jeez.
And so it was really cold in December here in Arizona, and it was at night. There's no lights, nothing. I was outside underneath the stars, packed the whole thing full of ice, measured it. It was, like I said, it was roughly 31, 32. And I went in there with the belief that I was not only going to melt every piece of ice in there, but I was going to heal my body. And I discovered a whole lot more. I ended up finding my spirit again, and I could feel the Holy Spirit. It was such a moving experience for me that not only did I literally melt every single piece of ice in there, but I came out a changed man. So I stepped out of the water and I filmed the whole thing, which was really cool. And I went in limping with plantar fasciitis. I was battling for about 10 months. And being a movement specialist too, it was really hard for me to heal it because of the fact that I kept training people and exercising it repeatedly, and I kept re-injuring it.
Yeah.
And so came out of the tub, and you see me walk through my rocks barefoot for the first time in my life. No pain. I just walk right past the camera, and I go and sit in the grass. I meditated for 15 minutes. And in that moment, I said, I am the cause, and I am the cure.
Dang.
And it literally just clicked in, and I was like, that's it. I just healed my body. I could feel that I healed myself, not just physically, but mentally and spiritually. Like it all came through in this wholesome feeling of, I know how to become the person God needs me to become now.
Were you meditating before? Like, I can't,
No.
again, like, well, what made you have that thought that, like, I'm going to melt this ice? Because that's the last thing I was thinking about when I went in there. Is like, I just need to survive this little challenge real quick to say I did it and, like, get out, you know? But then, like you're saying, like, you feel this sense of power and accomplishment within that's hard to describe. You, like, it's you and your thoughts. You're proud of yourself in a deeper level than any type of, like, winning shot on a basketball court or, like, accomplishment that you've done in life. So how did you know to, like, meditate after, like, go there?
Truthfully, man, it was... So I watched every video of Wim Hof online before I did this.
Okay.
Which back then...
So this is the normal thing to do. You meditate after.
So I just watched every video of him and saw what was on there, which wasn't a whole lot. You know, about 8 years ago, there wasn't as much traction for people doing ice baths. In a sense, that wasn't just sports recovery. And so for him, it was all about mindfulness. He just talked about it. And Joe Dispenza is all about mindfulness and tapping in and doing all these things. But I tried it. Didn't work for me. I didn't know how to meditate. It didn't make sense. My mind would just race, and I'm trying to go to the next thing. And I would just be so feeling everything to win. I just couldn't really focus.
Yeah.
And so when I went into the cold water, all of that turned off. All of it. It just completely turned off. And I was just like Wim Hof said, I'm just one with my breath in this moment. And as you probably experienced too, it's like, wow, you really can't think about a whole lot. But once I found my breath and I held on to it, then I started, which you know is the Reconnect ways. You go into there where we try and take you through and into yourself, because our mission is to guide you back to yourself.
Yes.
And so that's why that second ice bath is where I found myself finally. I found who I was as that little kid who used to always be afraid of everything, and I had such high levels of anxiety, and I held all my emotions in my gut, and I never spoke my truth, always kept my mouth held back, just because there was a lot of that growing up, you know, and so I never really was able to find myself entirely. And so in that ice bath, man, it all came forward. And once I found myself, I just started grabbing the ice, and I started to believe, like, it was like, I know who I am, and I know that I'm capable of doing this. Send the fire to my hands and melt the ice. And it literally just started disintegrating one after the other within a few seconds, man. I'm not even exaggerating. And there was nothing left. We're talking the whole tub was full. It blew my mind, and I thought, I just did what that guy online said. I just unlocked that thing, that whatever's in your head. I just totally did it. And so then at that point, my bones hurt. So I said, I'm going to get out.
Well, I tell everyone, I've brought so many people to your business, man, because even if they have their own ice bath, there's nothing like going to your place and being guided. Like, it's 100% better. I do my ice baths, I feel like I can say like 5 times a week right now.
Wow, yeah.
But I have a better experience when I'm guided by you or by one of your staff members, because it's different. And so everyone that gets an ice bath, I'm like, look, you need to go there first and like learn how to breathe. And even then, it's just not quite the same. But some of my best ice baths have been, we've only done 2 or 3 together, but you just have a sense of calming the mind. So like, what is that about for those people that are maybe listening? Like, would you encourage them to come in once a quarter or once a month and kind of get re-guided, or like, why is it so different?
That's a really good question. I think a lot of it comes down to us as humans. We typically choose the path of least resistance.
Always.
Right? Which means that we're gonna settle within our habits, right? We're gonna lean into these natural behaviorisms that we have, which, it's these things of going into the cold water the same way that you always do. Sometimes what we're gonna do is we're gonna find the easiest way to do it. We're gonna try and make something that's meant to be uncomfortable comfortable. You come into Reconnect, we're not gonna allow that. We're not going to enable you, right? Like, this is a place for internal growth, which means sometimes it can be ugly, sometimes it can be messy. That's why at that time when you felt the emotions rush through, it's like, whoa, what's happening right there? If you weren't with us, it's a good possibility you would have hardened up even more and not allow yourself to feel it.
Yeah.
So we have this quote here where if you allow yourself to feel it, you learn to grow through it.
Okay.
And so when you come into Reconnect and with our guidance by your side, we're trying to create this safe environment for you to where you feel that it's okay to go through. You give yourself permission to process whatever is there. So I have my quote on the side of the ice bath that says, the water won't give you what you want, it will give you what you need.
Yeah.
And if you allow yourself to have that, that means you're giving this freedom through surrender, right? Which I think is great, because actually a lot of it ties into faith too, it's that, but like God's in control of all these things, and we try and be in control of everything, and then the world ends up slapping us in the face, and we tend to have to drop to our knees and say, hey, I thought I knew better, but maybe I didn't, maybe I need to lean on some understanding besides myself. And so coming into the guidance, doing it by yourself, I still like doing it by yourself is incredible. Like, absolutely. That's why we have a lot of members, man. A lot of them will still come into Reconnect and say, totally good, I want to do my own thing.
Yeah.
And they come in 7 days a week. Like they literally come in daily. I would say the majority of the people that come to Reconnect come in there at least 5 days a week.
Wow.
And it's just because of that.
It's such a cool community.
Yeah, thank you, man. Thank you. Thank you. So, yeah, I would say the main difference between getting guided and not getting guided is because typically by ourselves, we will try and make it as comfortable and as easy as possible subconsciously without even realizing it. Then if you go into a place where they go, well, I see your patterns here. Like, I remember I did that with you one time with time. Like, you really wanted to control the time. And I said, no. And I just took the time. And you said, hold on. And you were like, wait a second. Like, that was your one thing to hold on to.
Well, that's what's so great about it. And that's, at least for myself, I couldn't get it anywhere else, where when you're in the ice bath, all you have is your mind. And so all the insecurities of I'm not good enough or I'm not strong enough, which for me, that's been a huge reason for my success, but also like one of my faults is that my whole life I felt like I haven't been good enough. And when I was in the ice bath, it's like you have to almost lie to yourself and tell yourself like you're okay, try and tell because everything in your whole body is just screaming like get out, because you can control that at any moment, right?
Right.
But luckily you have one of your staff members that are there like breathing you through it, telling you what to do, and like encouraging you to keep going. And past, if I probably would have got out after 45 seconds, but that first time, but I stayed in for almost 3 minutes or whatever it was, because they're telling me like you are good enough, you are okay, like you can do this. In your mind, you're triggering in your mind like these words of affirmation that everything's good and that you are strong enough. And I was just like, I don't know, it just hit me at a different level, man. It was absolutely phenomenal.
That's amazing.
One of my I started to really double down on my personal brand. That's why Lexi's been with us for a year. Her whole job is like, hey, I want to tell my story of, my family, my business, my hobbies, like all around. I really want to double down on this. And one of the things that I share is, because you've made it a part of my life, is ice baths. And so one of the videos, I've only had 2 videos like gone like super viral, and one of them is my routine in the morning doing my ice bath, but also my little boy Banks, who's 10 years old, jumping in right after. And of course, with any videos, and I think it's funny, but like there's controversy, right, on everything, especially around ice baths. as I was reading through some of the messages on that video that went viral about my little boy Banks, it was like, how dare you put a young kid in the ice water? Like, he's going to age horribly. It's so bad for him. Like, what would you say? Is this a fad? Is this truly good for you? Like, what do you say to those people?
Oh, man. Yeah, I saw that video, and I love that video. So we actually have quite a few parents that bring their kids in to Reconnect. And this is one small story I'm going to share with how we can respond to that, is that we've had parents who brought their kids in who have been in the worst of mental states, and to where they are ready to just say, I don't want to live anymore.
Like ages?
We're talking 10 years old to 7 years old. And for them to have those thoughts at that young of an age, I mean, how heartbreaking.
Right.
But they come into Reconnect, and we get them to go through this process where they're able to do something really difficult, right? But we're not just making them do something really difficult where it's like, hey, get in there. It's like, no. We're actually empowering them where they are deciding to step into this, which is helping them feel again, because a lot of times when people get to that point, they're not feeling anymore. It's because everything is so numb that they've conditioned themselves to not feel, right?
There's no confidence,
right? There's no confidence at all. It's completely shattered. And so when these kids go into this and they go, oh my gosh, they feel completely liberated, and you just go, how? Just from that, right? But it's not just getting in the cold water, it's having the support, right? So if you just said, like, just told little kids to jump in the cold water, they're probably just going to have fun, jump in and jump out, right? Which we've had, right? Where like the kids are about 7 years old, 8 years old, and they just feel really intrigued. Yep. But here's something I really want to point out, is that, as you know, your kids will do as you do, not as you say.
Right.
So if they're watching dad do something like this, then they're going to go, whoa, I can see the changes in my dad. I want to do the same thing. Like, why would you not, right?
Right.
And so when that happens, it's like now we're actually creating a difference in their life without any kind of manipulation. It is all pure positive influence. And so I look at it like, if anyone has to say something negative about your kids, it's like saying, oh, your kid's too young to exercise. Really?
Yeah.
Your kids are so resilient, the majority water, and they're way stronger and are paying a lot more attention than most people think. So if you're doing something like cold water, for one, it's not bad for them, right? The only way something like this could be bad is if there's some serious health conditions that we have to consider, obviously. But truly, it just depends on the environment. You know what I mean? If I saw a situation where the parent was forcefully putting their kid in this, then yes, that is a bad situation. Yeah. If they're physically putting them in there and say, just stick it out, you can, you know what I mean? It's like, then that kid's probably going to bawl his eyes out, and then what he's doing now is he's feeling all this discomfort, and he's being told to just stick it out, right? In a way that is, you don't get to feel this, I'm in control. It's just like this reconditioning state that if he wasn't in the water and he was sitting at home and you were hitting him with the belt, you know what I mean? It's like, don't cry as I hit you. You're like, dang, how can I not cry, dude? You just whipped me. You know, it's like, I mean, shoot, I remember getting that, you know, you're like, you're going to cry. You know, it's like, how could you not?
Right.
But it's like, to not cry, you go, ah! So I think, for one, it's an incredible practice to apply to kids, because it teaches them so much about confidence and self-belief, and that they are capable of doing things way beyond measure, way beyond what society says that, hey, this is where you have to be as this little normal cube. Instead, you're teaching them that it's like, hey, that box is something we create. So if we get outside of that, and it starts at that young of age, the world will be a different place.
Dang, I love that. Okay, one other controversy about ice baths. What's the hottest temperature, if you will, that you still get the maximum results and time? So is it anything below 50? Do you have to be in the 30s? Like, what is it?
This is a good question. So I'm sure, as everyone knows about the Huberman podcast, him and I believe her name is Rosanna. She's like the leading researcher when it comes into, or scientist when it comes to cold water immersion.
Okay.
But what they discovered is that as long as the water is uncomfortably cold, right? So they did some tests where the water was only 60 degrees and this and that, and people had to get to this point where it's uncomfortably cold, where they didn't want to get in and they wanted to get out. But this is where I have difficulty with that. And this is where people could say, well, if I can get benefit at 60 or 55, why would I get in 33? That's where you say, okay, let's break this down right here.
Okay.
So Huberman also has another podcast where he talks about this part of your brain that grows when you do things that you don't want to do. And you being a business owner and an entrepreneur and starting companies that you have, you know that there's plenty of those moments that you have. And every time after that, you experience growth. Yeah. Courage comes after the fear, right? As in, you go through that fearful moment and then bam, you feel good and courageous.
Right. Yeah.
So if that part of our brain is growing, if these hormones and these mental shifts are happening as we do something we don't want to do, if the water's only 60 degrees, you subconsciously are saying that's not so bad,
Right.
right? It's like that's kind of like a pool, realistically. So if you're looking at a tub that is at freezing temperatures and you see ice in there, every bit of you doesn't want to get in. That's where you're going to have the most amount of growth. This is why people that reconnect, when they come out, they go, oh my gosh, like I can't, you said I was in there 6 minutes?
Yeah.
Like what? I thought it was in there 30
so
seconds,
long,
right? The
yeah.
power of the present moment and also staying with it, right?
Right.
So the controversy on this, where it's like all you have to do is just get in something that's just a little bit uncomfortable where you want to get out. That could be any day of the week, right? Like you could say, I could get in 65 degree water and convince myself mentally that it is absolutely freezing. And I could get in there, start shivering and freak out within 15, 30 seconds, and I'll stay shivering for the whole 3 minutes.
Yep.
And you go, that was all subconsciously programmed. Have you ever heard the story of the chef that died in the freezer? And
Yes. And
Yeah.
it was like,
it wasn't even on. It
Right.
wasn't even on. So he died of hypothermia, right? So he convinced himself that he was in a freezing freezer.
That's so funny. I heard that story for the first time last week.
Oh, really? Wow,
Yeah.
what timing, huh?
I know.
So he
But
convinced
tell it.
himself.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, so basically that he got locked inside the freezer. Everyone left. He's the last one there. And he was in belief that the freezer was on, so he only lasted a few hours, and then he froze to death. But yet, when they came and found him, the freezer was not on. It was completely off, and it was not in freezing temperatures at all. In fact, he would have lasted there for a day at least, where it's like before he would have had some kind of effects because it wasn't that cold.
That's so
And the fact that he convinced himself it was that cold that he died. He froze to death in an area where you wouldn't be able to freeze to death. So I say that right there, knowing that we have that capability tells you that if you just get into water where it's like, oh yeah, you know, and it's like, oh, I want to get out, I feel like we can just convince ourselves of that. So what benefits are we truly getting? Probably some, right? There's going to be some because it's still doing something uncomfortable, right? And it's going to be a cooler temperature, which is going to obviously change our maybe our core temperature or skin temperature a bit, right? So there's going to be some positive there, but if we're looking for the actual benefits of this stuff, where you're looking for balance of the hormones, if you have Hashimoto's, you have any kinds of high levels of inflammation, EDS, any kind of chronic pain disorder, realistically, colder the better, because of the fact that when it's colder, your vascular system works harder, right? So if we're trying to suck all this blood to the center of the body to help out the organs, right, where it's stripping out every bit of inflammation, positive and negative, then once you go through that process, and yeah, your vascular system is going to work twice as hard when you come out. It's like, hey, man, we really got to send this blood back.
Right.
And while you're staying in the water, the body's trying to heat itself up and survive by building that thermal blanket, right? So with our guidance, as you've experienced before, we typically can get you to the state where you're such at peace where you can actually heat up in the water.
It's the craziest thing, man. It's the craziest thing. Okay, so I was in Sedona yesterday, and we went to a farmer's market, and everyone's got their vitamins and their juice that they swear by, right? And everyone has their elevator pitch of why you should buy it, and everyone's got their story of like, I did this 8 years ago, and this is why I got into it. What would be your elevator pitch to someone that's listening that's never done an ice bath before, why they should not only try it, but like incorporate it into at least a weekly routine, if not daily?
I would say
we're on top of Flatiron right now. The superstition.
Oh, okay. I'll say, is this Flatiron?
I haven't been pointing anything out because I've been so engaged in our conversation. But yeah, this is the Superstition Mountains. We just did a huge loop over like Saguaro Canyon, a little bit over Apache, and then Superstition.
Yeah, this hike is brutal. I'll be doing this one in October again. Once it cools down.
Right.
But yeah, to answer the question, I would say there's not very many practices that can pull you into the present moment as fast as an ice bath. I would say that something a wise man once told me was, this day and age, when we allow the world to dictate the pace of how we live, we become human doers and we forget how to be human beings. And I think that an ice bath can remind you how to be a human being, how to be more present, how to be there with your loved ones a lot more often. And look, not only is it going to be great physically for you, because yes, your body will feel better every time afterwards. How could it not, right? You just got this beautiful flush throughout your entire body. Think of like the toilet's jammed and you just flushed it, clean water comes out. That's typically what happens. But not only can it do that, and also at the same time create a massive mental shift for you to where you can be more present and be more understanding within yourself and others. but truly I think it enlightens your spirit in a way that nothing else can.
That's interesting. Why is it some people, for me, I can do an ice bath and literally, like, I sleep better that night. I just go to sleep. Some people, they do an ice bath and they can't go to sleep for like 3, 4, 5 hours. What, like, why is that?
That right there, I love that you brought that up, because I have this conversation all the time, actually, because of the dopamine release that happens. And people say, well, hey, norepinephrine, all these things are pumping in my body. Like how can you go to bed afterwards? How can you be tired afterwards? But it's all about your intention in that moment. You do a plunge before bed, you're probably thinking, I'm just going to let the day wash away.
Okay.
Right? And what are you doing? You're settling in to put a nightcap on. You're allowing yourself to be thankful for the day. This is the end point of my day. But if you go into the plunge and say, time to wake it up, I'm going to go through, let's dive in, let's do some work. Or like, oh, I need a boost, right? Like I need to get some energy for the morning. Here we go.
Yeah.
Your mentality is different every time. So what does that do, right? Our breath attached to intention and belief will create inside of us. Like that is where we can change not only our physiology, but our psychology at the same time.
That's so crazy, man. I'm a huge believer. I was, like this past year, well, the past 3 months have been a lot easier. But 12 months prior to that, like it's been probably one of the hardest years of my life since starting Green Mango. So much that I literally, like, there was my heart. Like I went and paid like, it was like 5 or 10 grand on heart tests because I thought I was having like heart problems, you know?
Oh yeah.
And my buddy one night just randomly was like, hey, I flew this girl in to do some breath work. And because I've been through one of your breath work classes and I absolutely loved it. Like some of my friends, again, I'm not a huge crier. I didn't cry that time. But my one buddy, Ryan, and his wife are like, we did I don't know if you even remember, but we did a Valentine's like breath work class. And, you know, some of my, I think 5 or 6 of, you know, close couples came in and you led us through a breath work class and they were bawling doing the ice bath together. And it was awesome. But I went to this breath work class for my buddy because I had such a great experience with you. And instantly after that class, my heart, like, pain just, it went away. And it was the crazy, like, and the test came back 2 months before that, like, yeah, you're, like, it's fine, like, your heart's healthy, you're good. And I think it was just, like, stress and anxiety and all the things of life, right? And you could probably tell me more about it, what it was, but it was so crazy. Literally the instant after that class, all the pain, like, it felt like someone was standing on my heart, like, just went away. What was that, man? Like, what is it? What kind of experiences have you had? Because that's a huge part of what you do too. Not just, you know, you have the ice baths, you have the compression, you have the red light, but then you do breath work classes.
Yep. Yeah, man. So breath work has been around forever, right? It's an ancient practice, as they would say, but it's something that's with us all the time. I mean, really, there's so much that our breath is connected to that we forget how powerful it can be to create a shift within ourselves. This is why I knew that I had to bring breath work to Reconnect for experiences like what you just went through.
Yeah.
Because we don't realize a lot that what we're doing to ourselves, right? You were the cause, you were the cure. That's the definition of what you just went through. And that was because you were holding on to something and didn't realize this unidentified stressor. It's buried inside of us. And this is where we can have things happen where acne starts breaking out all over and we don't realize, where did I get this acne from? It must have been this, it must have been that. Right. It's like, it's actually a hidden stress, right? Or like, man, I keep getting sick, or like my stomach pain won't go away, or whatever's going on. But a lot of times it's because of these unidentified stressors that we don't even realize are happening because we're not aware of them. So when you come into breath work, think of it like you peel back the layer where now the awareness is elevated, but you don't have to relive what caused it. You can literally change the vibrational state just by breathing, feeling the vibration, and shifting your perspective. So that's why I think breathwork is such a powerful modality, because it literally gives you an open lens to shift the perspective.
And some of the people that are listening to this right now might think like, that sounds so weird and like so off the wall, right? All I would say is like, just go try it. Like it's an hour long usually, right? Does it usually last longer than that, or is it typically about an hour?
Hour 15.
Just go try something for an hour and 15 minutes and you will be amazed. Now, are there some breathwork class? Obviously, that's kind of a dumb question as I'm asking. I was gonna say like, not all of them are created equal, but like, what makes a good class? Is it you? Is it the instructor? Is it your intentions going into it? Like, what advice would you give someone approaching a breathwork class or even the ice bath?
Well, so I'm going to have a biased opinion because obviously I facilitate breathwork. And I would say I'm actually releasing a certification here, teaching my way, which I created over the last 3 years. And my approach to breathwork is I treat it like exercise. Like you go in, you'll roll out, do some myofascial release to get your body engaged, do some connective movements, then you work, and then you typically bring it down, right?
Okay.
So that's kind of how my breathwork classes are. That way we're teaching people how to breathe because most people don't know how to breathe. Right, so we're teaching you how to breathe before you go into breath work. That way you can actually get the most out of your bang for your buck. But I will say this, the breath work only works when you allow it to.
Okay.
It only works when you allow it to. They actually just did a study trying to debunk the Wim Hof method, which is crazy because how could you? But, what they did is they had
I love that you believe in it so much.
Yeah.
Like it's not possible.
They literally had to rewrite all these science books because of what he did. And I was like, hold on, let's go back in time again to try and reverse what was already been done.
Yeah.
So anyway, what they did is they had these guys just do the breathing techniques, listen to some relaxing music with no train of thought, just do the breathing. I'm like, man, Cam, I can have you look at this camera for the next 20 minutes and do a specific breathing exercise and next to nothing will happen.
Okay.
But if I say close your eyes, go inside, and I do some specific talking to you, like I'm trying to get you rooted into yourself to where you peel back at least one layer, remove one brick from the wall, that's when the magic starts to happen, because then now you start to feel the vibrations of life overtake you.
That's crazy because that experience I told you about, and my business partner, Evan, I love him. He's one of the most spiritual people that I know. He left halfway through and just like didn't have a great experience. He just didn't have the experience. I'm over here like on cloud 9. I'm so happy for Evan because he's never done anything like that.
Yeah.
So it was his intentions going into it. So how do you get someone like that to like really sucker to the moment, like really give in and go through it?
I think that sometimes...
Is that where the instructor comes into play?
Yeah, and that's all I was going to say. I think a lot of times it comes down to the instructor, but also he just might not have been ready. Yeah, I mean, it might not have been the right time because he could have had something that was so heavy on his mind and his heart where they didn't matter what anyone said. Really what he needed was probably silence. You know what I mean? And breath work sometimes it can open you up so dramatically. If you're not ready for that, then it can be scary. And for him, maybe he started to feel something, and he was like, "No, like, I'm not doing that. Yeah, I'm not going to let this happen right now. I need to hold on because look, we've had these talks with lots of people where it's like, if I open this door right now, it's going to be an explosion.
Yeah.
And I'm around all these people I don't know. So that's where I always have to put that into consideration. And I do think though a lot of times it comes down to the facilitator, how they're instructing the breath, the environment they create. Yeah. So if he was going through a hard time, and he was in one of my classes. And don't get me wrong, I've hosted hundreds of classes, and a lot of people have been in there. And there's been times where people have such a hard time where they have to walk out.
Yeah.
Thank goodness I have Melissa who plays the sound bowls with me, and she's like my partner in crime on this. I say, hey, go aid to him. And so she'll literally go and she'll go and talk to that person.
Wow.
Boom, boom, boom. Next thing you know, 2 or 3 minutes later, they're come back in. Yeah, wow. So what did he need? He needed support. He needed to know that he was safe.
Dang.
Because he didn't feel safe. He was like, get me the heck out of here. I need to go. And a lot of times that happens when the emotions are just far too heavy, or maybe they feel something that they just don't know what it is. So it freaks them out. They say, I feel all this stuff in my body and I haven't been able to feel like that in years. So it freaked them out. And a lot of times if they stick it out, I can get to talk to them and they'll share that. They'll say, yeah, I went through the hardest time of my life. I just had a loss in my family.
Yeah.
This happened. And I just started to feel all of it. Yeah. And I say, hey, that's
too much.
Yeah, it's like, hey, totally understand, but one step at a time, right? But here's the thing, is that when we can learn to process those emotions in an enclosed environment, such as our breathwork classes, just going into an environment like that where everyone is aiming to do something in the similar path, then it helps you better process outside of that room. So it makes you better, right? It's the same thing with, you're not doing an ice bath to be the #1 ice bather in the world. You're doing an ice bath so you can be a better person, right?
Yeah.
So breath work is mainly the same process. We're doing breath work so we can process our own stuff, right? Our own emotions, heal wounds of the past, rewrite the stories of the inside. So when we show up to the world, we show up as the best version of ourselves.
I love that, man. And that's what I love about Reconnect is that, once I got comfortable of just getting in and laying back, then it was like, I think you call it the prayer dunk, where you get in and you like dunk like that, because that's just a different uncomfortable. And then one time, and I haven't done it since because it was so miserable, but you had me like keep waving and moving my arms because then you couldn't like get warm. And it was just like, man, this freaking sucks. But like you're saying, like I do have my routine in my house, and I think there's a little bit of comfort in knowing like I've wanted to do the prayer dunk. I've never done the prayer dunk in my house, so I'm committing to you. I'm gonna do it tomorrow when I do my ice bath because it's just all about putting yourself in uncomfortable positions. And that's what I was thinking about on those comments of going back to that post is like, even if this is a fad, like everyone thinks like, oh, that's not good for you. This is just like a fad right now. It's popular. It's making me feel better, and whatever can make you feel better, like, so what? Even if all the science is completely bogus, so what, man? Like, I feel like I'm a better person. I'm a better version of myself that day, and that's what's important.
I agree.
So, anyways, man, we didn't even get to, like, your story, but I love it, bro. I know we've only hung out a few times, but you literally have changed my life because you have your business, and so I want to thank you for that. And we need to schedule sometimes to do some breath work. I want to do it once a month. It's literally like changed my life the 2 times I have done it, and then continue to come in and get uncomfortable in those ice baths. So I appreciate you coming on, bro.
Of course, man. Of course.
Thanks for what you're doing.
Yeah. I will say real quickly that is I'm actually releasing a breathwork app very soon. Yeah, it's going to be called Air Breathwork.
Okay.
And we're in the air right now.
There we go.
Yeah. So right now it'll start out as an online platform, and you can just access it through the website, and then eventually it'll be a downloadable app.
Cool. I love it. Well, you have to let me know. Do you have the link right now? Is it ready, or when will it be ready?
No, we're in the process of making it right now. All the videos for the first round are shot, so we'll be uploading videos. So the first video is released right now will be all breath work, right?
Okay.
As you've experienced, and then we'll be going into breathing mechanics and how to better your overall performance breathing. Right, so to think of your overall health and longevity. So you breathe, because remember, breath work is different from breathing, right? So breathing, we should be breathing through our nose 95% of the day. You should have good control breathing, light, slow, and deep into the belly, and having this awareness that when it goes to the chest, how to bring it back down, because this is a stressful state, right? Anxiety ridden, right? So learning to breathe through your nose, keeping the tongue rested to the move. So all these mechanics of breathing, that'll be the next round of stuff. So teach people how to do that so they better their overall health. And the first release will be all breath work, so you can go and dive deep just like you're in our classes.
Dang. All right, so this winter, we're going to come up again, and we're going to land right here, and we're going to do an ice bath in this river. When it's freezing, okay? Right next to these boulders.
Yeah.
I think it'd be sick.
That would be amazing.
What was I
Can you land right there?
Yeah.
I'm in.
You were saying something. Dang it.
About the breathing mechanics part?
Yeah.
Learning to breathe better.
I don't know. Oh, that's what I love. Like, you've never been in a helicopter before, and you're like, hey, like, I'm a little bit nervous. And I was like, well, let me know if you need to turn around. Let me know. Like, it's all good. You're like, I have some breathing techniques. So you default to that, like, in everything in your life, and I think that's so awesome. And, I mean, it's just a testament to what you're doing in the power of breath. Like, you literally can control your full state if you can just control your breath.
Oh, 100%. Well said. That should be a quote.
You mentioned EDS. Is that Ehlers Danlos Syndrome?
Yeah.
Oh, wow. That's rough. That's hard.
Yeah, I got the one of hypermobility where everything is like Gumby.
You have the stretchy skin?
And like, everything. So I used to be able to, like, even when I was a bodybuilder and I was much bigger, I could put both feet behind my head like a pretzel, and I never would stretch. I could do splits every single direction. Yeah. My legs were huge too. And I would never stretch because I'm so hypermobile. But actually, I fit, and this is how I found out. And it started out with an injury in snowboarding. This person fell down in front of me, and I literally had to. They were in the path, which was like a narrow between tree cuts. I literally had to jump over them like a front flip style. So because there was just no room.
Yeah.
So I threw myself, and I landed on my back, jammed my hip so hard that I was screwed for the rest of the day. So after I went down there, though, then all of a sudden my legs weren't as hypermobile anymore. So I had this really bad injury, and then I obviously found out. I was like, oh, this is the problem. It's the connective tissue disorder. And so at that point, it was like the more connective tissue your brain builds, right, the more scar tissue, then the more protected your joints will become, because the collagen basically is separated, right? Like it's not firm. It's like Elmer's glue versus yours is like super glue.
Wow.
And so with that, it's like your joints if I hang on one arm, my arm would just dislocate.
What?
If I just keep going, they'll just go till they tear. There's no stopping
But you
point.
can't do like pull-ups and stuff?
So I used to not be able to just do, you couldn't do monkey bars. Like I couldn't do any of that stuff because my arms would literally just dislocate. And then with my legs, I'll just stretch them so far till they'll tear my hips.
Oh.
So now that I've been obviously a movement professional for 16 years. So doing biomechanic training and learning to work on my connective tissue is what has allowed me to combat a lot of the disorder, right? So I'm rebuilding a lot of the tensegrity in my body. So it's allowing my body to have that snapback thing. Like my running, if I showed you old videos, man, I'm not just clogging along, but now I sprint and I run fast now,
Just clogging along.
And now I float on the ground,
and that's cool.
And that's honestly where ice baths have been some of the biggest benefit, though, is bringing down that inflammation, because that was a daily thing, man. I would wake up like I got hit with a baseball bat or I got hit by a car. Like it was just bad or really bad. And I'm not exaggerating. I'd massage my calves every single morning so I could walk on the ground. And it's like, because they would hurt, my feet would be so swollen.
And you think that ice baths have helped that?
That is actually, the crazy thing is I ran tests for 2.5 years because after I did the ice bath, all my pain was gone, right? So I kept doing it, and I was like, well, let's try a test here. Let's not do an ice bath for a while and see what happens. So that's exactly what I did. Day 14, everything came back like a whirlwind. Day 14, I started to feel my body getting a little worse, like day 11, 12, 13, day 14, I'm like, oh my, it's all back. So I was like, okay, immediately to the ice bath in the backyard. And then after that, all the pain is gone again. I was like, okay, so I did it again and again and again. And I was like, okay, I'm going to do it with breath work. I'm going to do just breath work. I'm going to do this. And I ran all these tests for 2.5 years. Wow. And what I discovered was day 14, all my pain comes back.
That's crazy.
Yeah. Yeah, it was pretty wild.